I grew up on the other side of the tracks, a place where there was no opportunity and no path to a better life. I used to walk to school every day, and once I crossed over those tracks, I could see plainly, even as a little kid, that where you live and how you grow up determines how much opportunity you have. My kindergarten teacher once told me, "You'll be dead or in jail by the time you're 21. I'm 21 now, and I'm neither dead nor in jail. I'm Elijah Manley, and I'm from here. I'm running for the Florida House of Representatives to serve District 94. I grew up in South Florida in a poor neighborhood. My mother raised us alone, and even though she worked hard, like a lot of my neighbors, we grew up on food stamps, using Medicaid, and living in Section 8 housing. At the end of the month, things just weren't adding up for us as they should have. I saw firsthand the wealth inequality between my community and those on the other side of those tracks. It was just very common in my youth to be playing basketball with a great friend one day, and the next day, he'd be gone. What got me ahead? It was the strength of God and the support of others who believed that I should have a shot and opportunity at a better life. This is the story of families all across Florida. Families who work hard but don't see that hard work pay off at the end of the month. With a broken education system, a government that doesn't listen, inadequate housing, food and water scarcity, over-policing, and politicians who only care about themselves, it's no wonder that everyday people are locked out of the political process.
Yes, it's the Florida House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm. So, could you explain how basically the legislature, how it kind of works in states?
Absolutely. So every state, just like our federal government has a Congress. Every state in the union has a state legislature. Every state legislature is different. Some states have bicameral legislatures, which consist of a House and a Senate. Some have a state assembly or a state senate, or just one branch of their legislature. The job of the legislature is to create laws, pass laws, ensure that those laws are carried out by the governor of our state, and pass a budget.
Awesome. And what were some of your personal experiences that got you into politics and running for this position?
Absolutely. So I wasn't planning on running this year at all. I wanted to take a little time to relax a little bit and enjoy my 21st year of life, go out and do what college students do. But I kept seeing a bunch of issues in the community that kind of pissed me off a little bit, ranging from homelessness to the way our infrastructure was being treated or neglected. If you know anything about Fort Lauderdale, you heard about the water mains breaking every other day, sea level rise, and how it's impacting our community, beach erosion. And our community is a tourist-based economy. And that means we draw a lot of revenue from people visiting Miami, Fort Lauderdale, going to our beaches, shopping at our businesses. And that is taking a hit due to our infrastructure and due to climate change. So that's one thing that got me into voting, but I also got me into running, but I also am running for state representative because I think that we are at a crucial time in American history where we're dealing with a right wing that is hell-bent on taking progress in this country back another 50 years. Everything we've seen from Amendment 4 passing in the state of Florida, which gave 1.4 million formerly convicted felons the right to vote, including my mother, in the state of Florida, and how they're hell-bent on turning that back. So I'm running because I think that we need the voice of progress and reason in the state legislature.
We recently talked to Jen Perlman, and she discussed, well, on her website and on your website, I noticed that you both talk about big sugar and about toxic algae. And I thought that's really interesting because that's not something we necessarily hear on the national level. It almost seems like a very Floridian issue. Could you maybe expand on those two?
Absolutely. So I'm not a fan of Big Sugar, and I know Jen Perlman very well. She's a good friend, and she'll be representing part of my district on a federal level. So we'll be partners on our initiatives. when we talk about the environment, a lot of people only focus on the sea level rise aspect of climate change and the environment. They don't focus on the other man-made and other human aspects of these catastrophic events from climate change. One of those being bit sugar. In Florida, we've seen toxic red tide and blue-green algae affecting our beaches and our waterways in the state of Florida because of bit sugar, the bit sugar industry, and the way that industry specifically has been operating over it by Lake Okeechobee in Central Florida. What my job would be as a state representative is get the water flowing back south from Lake Okeechobee, because essentially what's happening is they're suffocating the Everglades and the mangroves of our state down here in South Florida, because they are stationed to the south of Lake Okeechobee. So we're not allowed, that water is not being able to flow down south to South Florida. And I think that's a big issue. So we actually have a Republican governor for the first time in our state's history that's actually talking about the environment to some extent. He's not the best person on the environment, but he is not a tool of the bit sugar industry, as all Republican governors of the previous Republican governors were. So I think as a Democrat, I'll be able to work with Ron DeSantis to address the bit sugar industry and what it's doing to our environment. However, but I also want to touch up on one other thing. I think the big issue, what's being left out of the conversation so often, is drinking water supply. We're going to run out of drinking water for people in South Florida. We're pulling so much water out of our freshwater aquifers like there's no tomorrow, and we're wasting a lot of it. And there's no guarantee that we're going to be able to sustain water services for the 8 million people in South Florida or the 12 million people in our metropolitan area.
Another thing that I saw that you did was you signed something called the Homes Guarantee Pledge. Can you explain more in detail what that is and how it pertains to your district?
Absolutely. So here in South Florida, and I assume it's the same in many parts of the country, is what we're seeing in California and LA. There's a housing crisis where you try to go out and rent a house or sign a lease. It is outrageous, the cost of housing and the cost of living in general. Down here in Miami and in Fort Lauderdale and the greater South Florida metropolitan area, so many people are unable to get housing at affordable rates. And affordable housing is a really big part of my platform and a priority that I'll be fighting for in the legislature. I signed the Homes Guarantee Pledge, which is a list of policies that we agree will be best to get us, will be best for getting affordable housing in our state, and will be best for eradicating homelessness. In Broward County, there are thousands of homeless people, a lot of them sleeping out on the street in downtown Fort Lauderdale. They're in my district. And I have an obligation to those people to ensure that they are taken off the street and given a place to stay. So one of the things I call for in my platform is $6 billion over 4 years to invest in building 500,000 units of affordable housing across the country, investing in our public housing to make sure that people who are living in Section 8 housing or other public housing have a place to stay that is of comfort. As we know, there are a lot of housing across our country that is not taken care of, our public housing specifically, where they're rodent infested, rat infested. Management companies are not doing their upholding their part of the bargain. And I think that there's a big stake in this in the state of Florida that I play, and that is making sure that those people, especially in communities of color, have a place to go and live in comfort.
You've also been on television a number of times on Fox News. We were watching it and we were just shaking our heads at Fox, and the whole, their perspective on things is crazy. I wanted to ask just how was that experience going on Fox News?
It was eye-opening. I know a lot of Democrats don't like going on Fox News because they think Fox News is racist and whatever. And, although I agree with them on a lot of that, I think there is a constituency that we can reach on the right, who are not necessarily horrible people that we should cash from society, that our message is a lot more popular with people on the other side than we think. So I had the opportunity to go on Fox a number of times and basically become the socialist boogeyman for a while over at Fox, to debate everything from what socialism is to what social democracy is, to taxes and tuition-free college to Medicare for all. And I've been on Laura Ingram's show, on Bulls and Bears, on so many other shows on Fox. And one was debating Foster Friess, a millionaire who ran and almost became the governor, I believe, of Wyoming, and had the opportunity to go up against Charlie Kirk as well on Fox several times. It was an enlightening experience. I think after going on Fox, I had a lot of people reach out to me from the other side, Republicans, people on the right, who actually agreed with a lot of what I was saying, surprisingly. And, maybe they didn't agree with socialism or whatever Fox was putting out there. But they agreed with things like Medicare for all, and they agreed with things like we need to do something about corporations like Amazon not paying their fair share of taxes.
Has CNN ever invited you on?
CNN has never invited me on, and I find that funny.
Yeah. It sounds like them, though.
Not surprising.
Yeah. When we were, basically, whenever we interview someone, we look them up on YouTube to find, anything we can. And we found you, actually, this is Jen Perlman's area, Broward County. We found you speaking to the school board, and they were being very disrespectful to you. And I wanted to ask, what was going on? What was that all about?
Absolutely. Luckily, I have a lot of experience dealing with the Broward County School Board, probably more than just about anybody in the politics down here in South Florida. I started by going to school board meetings in middle school, skipping class to go to school board meetings. I got in trouble a little bit for that, but I was so grateful to do it because I had the opportunity to listen to what the teachers and the students at my school and other schools were talking about, what issues were important to them, and actually present them at the school board, because nobody else seemed to be doing that. And I talked about things that, were common sense things, like we should address the issue of mold and mildew in our schools. A lot of our schools were falling apart in Broward County because we live in a very humid area where we have a year-round tropical sunny weather, very humid. And the way our schools are designed are not to withstand hurricanes or withstand the impact of these environmental pressures like humidity and the extreme heat that we see year-round. And it's only getting worse every year. So there have been teachers and students getting sick because of mold and mildew in our schools, infrastructure falling apart in our schools. And I continuously went to the school board proposing ideas to address this. And I always was ignored by the school board. So I decided to run for the school board in 2018 too, because I was sick of being ignored by the school board.
Yeah, and I saw on your website too, you do have a lot of other policies and ideas for education. We're actually both teachers, and we saw that one thing is you're proposing at least $60,000 salary for teachers. So thank you for that. And there's actually something on there that I'm not familiar with, so I wanted to ask you what it was. You said you want to restore something called STEPS. I actually don't even know what that is, so can you elaborate on what that is?
Yes, it's a system we used to have in Broward County Public Schools and in Florida, where essentially teachers in our state would get an increase in their salary over time. However, what our district did, really what Tallahassee did, that forced our district in this position, where they had to get rid of STEPS, and basically veteran teachers would not be getting paid the money they were owed at a specific time for being in the district for, let's say, 5 or 10 or 15 years. There were certain milestones you could reach, and there were certain bonuses you could get that has been taken out of the Broward County public school system in most districts. And I think we need to restore that and bring that back into fruition. And in addition to that, also mandate that our teachers get paid at least a minimum of $60,000 a year. I personally think it should be $100,000 a year, the job they have to do it. But I think $60,000 is a good start for our state. We're really far on the list in terms of education and teacher pay in the country.
When we were also looking you up, we saw some presidential campaign ads, and we wanted to ask about your experience running for president in the Green Party.
Yes, absolutely. I did do that. I ran for president. A lot of people wanted to know why I did that, being that you had to be 35 years old, which I obviously knew that at the time, that you had to be 35 to be president. But I ran because I felt that young people's voice in the political system was being taken advantage of or not listened to. And I wanted to provide a different voice. So it wasn't ever to win or get votes or anything. It was really to make sure that my voice was out there and getting the attention that it deserves to talk about the issues that were affecting this generation and my own community. And I did run into running the Green Party in 2016. And I learned a lot. I had the opportunity to go across the country too and meet people and hear what people thought. And I even inspired you remember the guy the kid that was running with These Nuts name and everything. I even inspired that person to run, actually. So I did.
Wow.
I learned a lot.
Are you still a Green Party member?
No, I'm currently I'm a registered Democrat, and I'm running in the Democratic primary. I still have a lot of respect for Green Party and the third parties, and I think this may not be as popular in my own party, but I think that we should make it easier for people in alternative parties to run for office. It's the Democratic thing to do.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, what are you going to do in the general when it comes to voting? I don't know if that's a safe question to ask someone running as a Democrat, but especially a progressive, would you say you would vote for Joe Biden?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love the question. I mean, I've had to answer it a bunch lately, but I'll answer it. I was a proud supporter of Bernie Sanders, and the vision he brought to this country. He inspired millions of people, and for the most part, for weeks, for the entire campaign, I said I was going to hold my nose and vote for whoever the nominee was. If it was Biden, if it was Warren, if it was anyone, some easier than others. But that changed recently due to allegations against Joe Biden, several allegations of sexual assault and rape against him. I was willing to hold my nose for so many things, including even some of his bad foreign policy positions, just to get Trump out of office. But I had to draw the line there. As someone who is a survivor myself and knows a lot of survivors, I think it was just a little hypocritical of the Democratic Party to go around Me Too and everything for the last few years and then turn around and nominate someone who doesn't even live up to those standards. So I will not be casting my vote for Joe Biden. I'll be voting my conscience. I haven't decided what that is yet, if that's a third party or if that's writing in a name, or probably not voting at all in the presidential race, but I'll probably make my mind up on that as it goes. But it won't be for Joe Biden.
I want to thank you for that, really. I mean, it's brave to even stand out against the whole Democratic establishment. So it takes a lot of guts to be running for something and say that. I wanted to ask, have you met Howie Hawkins before?
I have met Howie a couple times. When I was trying to run in the Socialist Party primary, actually we were competing against each other in that. So I have met Howie.
Okay. I think I'm definitely considering voting for Howie Hawkins.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy from what I know.
Yeah. Do you have another question? No? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when is your primary, and where can people find out more about you?
Absolutely. So my primary is on August 18th, a couple months from now, about 4 months from now. And there is no general election in this district because it's so overwhelmingly Democrat that whoever wins the primary is just going to be the state rep. So my actual general election is the primary on August 18th. So people, if you live in a district, you can visit ElijahManley.com, or if you don't, you can visit ElijahManley.com and check out my platform, check out why I'm running. We need money, so donate to people. And you can also sign up to phone bank and volunteer. Everything, the pandemic right now has hurt us a little bit, so we're asking people to sign up to do virtual phone banking online, and hopefully everything will work out that way.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Absolutely no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Take care.
You too.